Once again, a huge Brands Hatch crowd for what is truly a festival. 24 years of a formula that's launched some of the world's finest racing drivers, and a formula that provides fierce racing and great excitement. Over 160 competitors from 20 different countries, national champions galore. There's a variety of chassis in Formula Ford 1600, but the class of the field is so often provided by Van Diemen, the most successful manufacturer, going for their 10th win in the Formula Ford Festival. Down the years, over 1,600 Van Diemens have been built, and they'd have a very powerful squad of drivers for the weekend, led by the Belgian Mark Goossens. Experienced backup as well, including team boss Ralph Furman, who played a big part in the early stages of Ayrton Senna's career. The technology is advanced, but not losing sight of the simple specification: tubular steel frame chassis, a Ford 1600 engine, and treaded road-going tyres, the ideal first step into motor racing. The climax of the festival, 4 quarterfinals, 2 semis and a final. This is the first of the day's quarterfinals, following on from 8 heats the day before. The Van Diemen Works driver Russell Ingall is out front, but number 53, Jamie Spence, is proving what an excellent starting formula this is. 18 years old, motor racing only 3 months after experience in karts, and he's battling for second with a top Irish junior, Dino Morelli. And Morelli, number 3, takes second place at Druids. Formula Ford racing is not without its perils. Behind Spence and Morelli, hefty contact putting paid to the fancied Belgian, Marc Delpierre. But Russell Ingall headed the qualifiers from quarter-final 1. Definitely a driver to watch in the later stages. Morelli second and Spence third. The qualifiers from quarter-final 1 would be joined in the first semi-final by those from quarter-final 3. Warren Hughes, number 155, hadn't made the best of starts, but was in control midway through the first lap to head Andy Stapley to the flag. Plenty of action back down the field. The American Brian Herter, number 101, defying all the local knowledge and showing that the outside line at paddock can produce results. Herter would finish 4th behind Hughes, Stapley and Stefan Nielsen of Denmark. So Warren Hughes would be alongside the earlier race winner Russell Ingall in the first semi-final. Hughes from Sunderland, who doesn't believe in holding anything back in the early stages of the competition.
It depends on your viewpoint. I don't really like to settle for that sort of, second position. I'd like to win, and obviously it gives you a much better chance for the final. If you can get a break from in the lead in the final, then it's going to be hard for others to get hold of you. So, I'd really like to win the semi.
So you feel that break has got to be made, in the first run down to paddock, or what?
I think, yeah, I'm on the outside of the front row. I think that gives me a bit of an advantage at the start. It may sound unusual, but people who know Brands Hatch know that, possibly the favoured position is the outside of the front row. So, hopefully we can do it from there.
The bespectacled Hughes takes his front row place. First semi-final, commentator Tiff Niddell.
So the 28 cars then line up for this semi-final with Hughes on the outside of the front row, angled towards poleman Ingall, both drivers trying to make the most of the tricky slope. Behind them, junior champion Morelli, Andrew Stapley, young Jamie Spence, Danish champion Stefan Nielsen, French champion Frank Guibert, and American young sensation Brian Herter. The red light's on, they wait the green and go. Warren Hughes makes a good start, but Ingall matching him all the way towards paddock. They're side by side. Hughes hasn't really got the advantage. Ingall hangs on. Hughes going the long way round the outside of the rest of the pack. And Hughes still on the outside. They're up to Druids, neck and neck. But Russell Ingall still holds that inside position he had from pole position. Hughes, in fact, sliding wide. Dino Morelli sneaks through into second place. So Warren Hughes' hopes of a good start have all come to naught, as there, a spinner in the middle of the back. That's Louis de Resta. Front suspension looking broken, but out front it's now Ingall for Morelli, and Hughes recovering from that Druids disaster when he went wide. The rest of the pack come through clearways, coming up now to end this first lap. It's Ingall out front from Morelli and a gap to Hughes. De Resta there, being helped from his car. Obviously he's not going to go any further. The marshal's trying to get the car out of the way as the leaders reach Paddock Hill Bend, heading up towards Druids, and Ingall with a safe lead from Morelli. Andrew Stapley out wide there. That was Guibert, the French champion, going out wide. Jamie Spence doing well up to 5th or 6th. Oh, and in the background there, a big accident at paddock and another car off in avoidance. That's 170, the Dutchman. He's safely out of the car though, but a big shunt that. That's Richard Urson, the rest of the pack getting out. We see that's Frank Bradley in the middle in the dark overalls being helped out of the way. He's okay. But meanwhile, the leaders through Surtees coming up to finish the second lap. The marshals will be clearing that wreckage from paddock. Ingle leads from Morelli, with Warren Spence now moving back up onto the tail of these front two. But it's red flags that in order to get rid of that accident debris down at Paddock Hill Bend, we need to stop the race, so that's going to be halted. So there we see the cars going to be moved. That's 160 Scotsman William Thorburn involved. We can see here sliding out wide, that was Darren Edmonds spinning sideways. He collects the two cars behind. Frank Bradley is in the middle, that's pitched over the top, and all three coming to the rest safely up against the tyre walls, but it's the end of the festival for them. And the third man involved there was Philip Goubert. As the rest of the field line up for the restart, he can only dream of what might have been. So Hughes has another chance. The red goes to green. This time Ingle has a little bit of wheel spin off that pole position. Maybe Hughes this time, he has got that length ahead, the favoured outside position. Second time lucky. Warren Hughes takes the lead into paddock and now will try and make the most and make a break at the front as the rest of the pack goes through paddock bend safely this time. Morelli in third place, Ingle second, fourth Andy Stapley. The rest of the pack round Druids, down Graham Hill Bend. These front three pulling away slightly as Stapley made a bit of a mistake up at Druids, and young Jamie Spence there has made a very good start. He gets inside Stapley for Surtees. Jamie Spence goes to fourth place while the front three go into clearways. In the order, Hughes, Ingle and Morelli. Spence and Stapley fourth and fifth. Up now to end first lap of this restarted race, and Ingle pulls out of the slipstream, looks up high to paddock to try and pull inside Hughes on the exit. The classic paddock manoeuvre, wide at the top trying to pull tight, but Warren Hughes pulls to the inside on the drag up to Druids. Morelli watching from behind, waiting for one of these two to make an error so they can sneak through. Of course, always in a semi-final, young drivers very conscious they need to finish to get into that final, but of course every position they improve upon is another row of the grid for the final. So position's important, but finishing equally important. Hughes leads Ingle and Morelli. Through clearways, Jamie Spence now a bit of safe space ahead of Andrew Stapley as there a frantic battle begins behind that Stefan Nielsen, the Danish champion, with Frank Guibert, the Frenchman, right in his slipstream. This is really the battle of the moment for fifth place. Nielsen against Guibert. Guibert pulls out of the slipstream, looks to the outside. Nielsen holding that inside line, and coming up the inside is Simon Harrison, and he spins. Guibert chops him off. Harrison amazingly a 360-degree spin right in the middle of Paddock Hill Bend. Cars going everywhere. Harrison rejoins last, and Guibert in fact there's got by Nielsen. So Guibert moves up to fifth, Nielsen sixth, and Harrison at the back. Guibert, Nielsen now behind Nielsen. The next man in line is Brian Herter, that young American. He won the Barbasard Championship in America. He's impressed a lot of people on this, his first trip over to England. Brian Herter in the Reynard, run by the experienced John Bright, chases after Nielsen, looking for that place. Leaders now well away. The front three in order. Ingle still looking for a mistake from Warren Hughes in front of him. Morelli in their wheel tracks. Up the inside for Druids. Ingle looks to the outside this time. Hughes taking that inside line. Morelli close behind. Classic Formula Ford racing from these three drivers. Warren Hughes returning to the Formula ready from a year. He came second in the Vauxhall Lotus Championship, a more senior Formula this year, but he's come back to the festival to prove his point. Russell Ingle second in the British Championship this year, and Dino Morelli the junior champion. So two youngsters chasing the more experienced Warren Hughes, who's out front at the moment. Slipstreaming along the straight before they fan out for paddock. the start of lap 6. It's Hughes and Ingle, and quite a gap after Morelli. Back to young Jamie Spence. A tremendous drive from Jamie Spence. Only been racing for 6 months, although a lot of karting behind him. Here Morelli looking to the outside of Ingle and trying to go the long way around. A very difficult manoeuvre. Ingle holds off, but it gives Warren Hughes a bit of a breathing space now as Ingle's busy holding Morelli back. It's always going to be the problem for Ingle. He's a man in the middle. He would love to get by Hughes and get on the front row for the final, but he's always got to watch in his mirrors for Dino Morelli, who will try and sneak through whenever he can. Into clearways, the tyres squealing as the drivers brake right on the limit of adhesion. So easy to lock up wheels in Formula 4. They're very light cars, 420 kilos, and really the skill of braking as late as possible into these corners is one of the real Formula 4 tactics that's so difficult. Ingle now closes back in on Hughes. Morelli watches behind, up to Paddock Hill Bend. Warren leads them over to the right, and Nielsen, how the battle still rages on. This must be for 6th or 7th place now. It's Nielsen that's been holding up the people behind, and Brian Herter looks for a way behind David Germain, that is, moving up through the field after a disappointing heat. He's now trying to join in the fun and get through this blockage caused by Nielsen. Herter is following. Now Germain has his hands full. They're trying to ease through on the inside. That's the Scandinavian champion, Kalle Jokinen. Champions from all over the world here at the festival. Jokinen has a go, and Jokinen's place also coming under threat there from Johnny Hauser. So while Nielsen holds this battle together, everybody trying to move up a position. Out front though, Ingle looks again at Warren Hughes. Hughes looking very unrattled. He really does look on top form in this semi-final. They're off. That was Simon Harrison. We saw him spin earlier, and looks like having been on pole position for his heat, Harrison's going to be a disappointed man. Here then the battle for 5th place hots up. This is Guibert and Stapley. In fact, Guibert's moved up into that 5th place ahead of Stapley, so a good move by the French champion. But really none of them in the class of these front three really showing top form out front. Warren Hughes not troubled. Nielsen still holds his battle for 7th place. There you see just ahead Guibert and Stapley, but Nielsen with a huge train of Herter, Germain, Jokinen and Hauser behind him, all trying to get through to a better position on the grid for the final. Hughes, Ingle and Morelli through Paddock Hill Bend once again. All three very experienced drivers. A little locked up break there, Warren Hughes, a puff of smoke as Nielsen, Herter out wide, was trying to go around the outside of Nielsen there. Now it looks like Germain might get through past that position. David Germain indeed gets up the inside, a Brands Hatch expert himself, finally gets by Nielsen. Up front though, it still couldn't be closer. Hughes, Ingle and Morelli on a piece of string. Into clearways, so important at clearways to get the power down, to keep your foot in the throttle to overtake up to Paddock. There the battle for 7th still goes on. Germain, Nielsen, Herter, Jokinen, the Scandinavian champion, looks up the inside, but it's not to be. Meanwhile, out front, Hughes really does look as though under pressure he's not going to crack. And they're off. That's a red Swift. We've done 2 more in the middle of the track locked together. They want to get out of the way quick. That's right in the middle of clearways. One guy's going to move out the way, but he's not. No, the same suspension, front left suspension's buckled underneath. Well, those cars really are going to cause a blockage. There's the leaders now coming to Surtees. That accident at clearways. The leaders coming upon the accident. There's the marshals slowing them down. Should all be safe. The drivers will obey the flags. Hughes goes to the left, Ingle and Morelli to the right, and before anybody can make any advantage of that, the red flags fly once more, and this brilliant semi-final is being brought to a close once again while they move that wreckage out of the way. There's Jake Benson, one of the drivers involved, who caused the stoppage in the semi-final. His suspension all askew, front wheels pointing in different directions, and obviously his festival over here. We see him. We see Benson there spinning out. There's the Swift. That's Mike Gardner, who just clips Benson, spins off into the tyre wall with a rear wheel askew. And the drivers now, they're being shown the checkered flag, and that means that as the race had completed half distance, the results can be declared.
And that means that Warren Hughes goes through to a front row place in the final. Ingle and Morelli also impressive. Jamie Spence will be carrying an onboard camera for that final. But Frank Bradley, ex-owner of Swift Racing, had rather less to look forward to after his airborne exit on the first lap.
Man who Started Swift Racing, should know how to put something like this back together again, I should think.
Yeah, it won't be a big problem to put back together. I'm just sorry I broke the thing in the first place.
Tell us how the accident happened.
I was doing the festival for some fun, because I'm too old now to be a youngster and race hard. We went into the corner, 3 or 4 boys really trying very hard. They lost it and I was in the middle of it. But Formula Ford, it's a wonderful formula because it's so safe. And the regulations are so good that we don't generally get people hurt. And people can come to an event like this, have a wonderful day out. The youngsters hopefully go ahead and the old ones come out again, so it's a good event.
Not exactly the kind of sentiments you hear too often in half the field. The others will be coming through quarterfinals 2 and 4 and the resulting semi. The first of those quarterfinals, Chris Hall in the works Jamin, car number 79. He led from pole position. Third lap and on the run up to Druid's corner, Oliver Gavin on his Formula 4 debut gets in front. Chris Hall, the Brands Hatch circuit champion, but Oliver Gavin, one of the rising stars of the sport. And Gavin would stay in front until lap 7, when he rather lost a bit of concentration, running wide at clearways and onto the grass. And by went Chris Hall, along with Troy Dunstan, Jason Pollock, Vince Rademacher and Rafael Del Sart. Chris Hall now looking comfortable in front, but behind him, Dunstan and Pollock were racing hard. And they got a little bit too close to each other, also at clearways. This was on lap number 8, and it's Northern Ireland's Jason Pollock, who spots a gap on the inside, but the wheels interlock, and both head for the gravel. Both were to keep going, but another later spin for Troy Dunstan would leave him well down. But the winner of that quarter-final, Chris Hall from Rademacher, Del Sart, and the recovering Oliver Gavin. The last quarter-final to decide the remaining places in the second semi. The championship favourite Mark Goossens would lead from start to finish, although not entirely comfortably. But down the field, some frantic action. One of the best battles being this one. 128 is the very quick German woman driver Claudia Hurtgen. 179 Andy Charsley, local driver with a great deal of experience at Brands Hatch, but pushed very, very hard on this occasion. This was the race for 5th and 6th. Hurtgen trying for the outside at paddock, a couple of laps from home, and in so doing forcing the mistake from Charsley, who goes very wide on the run-up to Druids. And behind them, this is how keen the competition is to grab the last remaining qualification places, almost 5 abreast at paddock, and a pack of 13 cars contesting the same bit of track up to Druids. And the vivid colour scheme of Michael Tegadine heads the charge. Ahead of him, the flying Andrew McCauley, who set fastest lap. But in the pack behind, only 2 qualifying places were available, and it's Martin Santner of Germany who gets nudged aside. Richard Reynolds and Carl Jarvis go through. But well behind the race winner, Mark Goossens, who held off the stern challenge of Tommy Verlainen to show that he was the man to beat at Brands Hatch.
Well, I think it's a quite technical circuit because we don't have those long straight lines like we have in Truxton or Silverstone or whatever. So it comes down to the driver, I think, and the right setup.
Your quarter-final, you were under a bit of pressure, but you won it. Did you feel comfortable?
Well, I felt comfortable in the race as well, till we had that back marker. And, well, he hit me down in paddock bend, so I felt a bit out of balance, so I had to close the gap in the last 2 laps. But I felt quite confident, yeah.
In the quarterfinals, are you really giving it 110% as you might do in the semi-finals or final, or are you holding back just a bit?
No, I don't think so, because, well, every single heat or qualifying, whatever we do, we have to go for it. So it's always 150% even.
Goossens on pole position on the grid for this second semi-final. Alongside him, the experienced Chris Hall, looking for a place in his 4th festival final. And back on row 5, Claudia Hurtgen, after looking so impressive in her quarter-final. So the second semi, 14 to go through. Once again, Tiffany Dell.
28 cars then forming up on the grid for this second 15-lap semi-final, and behind that front row of Goossens and Hall there's the Finnish champion Vealainen, the Dutch champion Vincent Rademacher, the French runner-up Pierre Lemarie, Frenchman Riel Del Sart, Irish champion David Wright, and young Oliver Gavin, who is back on the 4th row. The field await the green lamp, and Hall makes a good start from the outside, but Goossens matches him off the grid. They head for paddock again, a very clean start, but it's Goosens that's got into paddock for that first time. That all-important start as the rest of the field go through. There's Jason Pollock, middle of the pack as they go up to Druids, and Goosens has easily made that start as Vejlanen tries the outside round Hall, trying to go the long way round. It doesn't come off. And there, middle of the pack, we see Claudia Hurtgen right behind Oliver Gavin as the field streams down through Graham Hill Bend. The leaders down bottom straight up to Surtees. Very tight indeed, but it's Goosens out front from Hall and Vejlanen. Hall even looking up the inside of Goosens there. The Brands Hatch champion trying to show the British champion the way around his home circuit, but it didn't come off, and in fact Goosens now has pulled out a couple of lengths lead over Hall, who has the young Finn Vejlanen in his mirrors. Vejlanen looks to the outside as they go up to Paddock Hill Bend. Rademacher it is in 4th place, but these two close in slightly onto Goosens. Goosens playing it very safe through Paddock at the end of that first lap, making sure he doesn't make any silly mistakes. Hall has to shut the door on Vejlanen. Vejlanen looking up the inside. It wasn't to be. Hall chases Goosens. Down the hill they go. The rest of the field streaming round the top of this famous Druids corner. Down that hill, a long bottom straight. Goosens holds sway out front. Hall in his wheel tracks, and Vejlanen thinking of another way to get around the outside of him. Rademacher a couple of car lengths behind. Midfield, that's Andrew McCauley who'd started, and he punts Pollock. That's Jason Pollock. Well, maybe Troy Dunstan will feel there's some justice in the world after all. I don't know, but certainly that's the end of young Jason Pollock's festival. But up front, Vejlanen looks up the inside of Hall. These three slightly clear of Rademacher, and that's Delsart in 5th place with his French compatriot Lemarie on the grass. Well, that's French friendliness for you. Sartre pushing Lemarie onto the grass, and Gavin trying to make the most of that. In fact, Gavin going around the outside of Lemarie. So Gavin moves up a place, and Lemarie pushed onto the grass by his countryman Delsart. Delsart now having Gavin on the grass. Gavin looking up the inside for Surtees. Sartre certainly shutting the door wherever he can. That's Claudia Hurtgen now challenging. Hurtgen looking up the inside of Lemarie. So Lemarie indeed is pushed another place down. So Lemarie loses 2 places in that lap. 1 to Gavin. Gavin now inside Sartre. So Delsart getting pushed backwards. Oliver Gavin, a tremendous. This is his first Formula Ford event. He's won the Formula First Championship, and he goes through. And Hurtgen, Claudia Hurtgen, a tremendous dive up the inside. Has it paid off? Sartre goes out wide. Now Hurtgen pushes. She pushes Sartre wide one side, then shuts the door on Lemarie. Lemarie on the grass for the second lap running, but the young German girl, only 20-year-old, she's sorted out the Frenchman. Gavin, along as Lemarie now tries to get past his friendly Frenchman Delsart, but he's not going to let him through. And out front, Goosens now with a bit of breathing space from Hall, who's coming under increasing pressure from Vejlanen. A Finnish champion who was drawn in the same heat as Goosens. He shadowed Goosens in the heat and the quarter-final. Here's the French battle, the all-French battle. As Delsart is having a queue of cars behind. Behind Lemarie, that's the Irish champion David Wright now trying to move in on the 2 Frenchmen. And behind him, that's Macaulay. Macaulay getting on the inside of David Wright, but he has the door shut on him. Macaulay is the man who this year, and there he's pushing. Someone else trying to get us. Tommy Antolainen, the Finnish driver, another Finnish driver who has actually got inside Macaulay. Macaulay pushed down a place, or has he? No, he hasn't. Macaulay holds that inside line for Graham Hill Bend, and Macaulay, who was the 3rd in this year's British Championship, is moving up through the field after starting right at the back of his heat. Lemarie now looks up the inside of Delsart. This time he's got past his fellow Frenchman. Delsart hanging on round the outside, but he's not going to do it this time. Lemarie takes that place, and David Wright, the Irishman, also moving up a place. So Delsart getting pushed slowly backwards from about 4th place to 8th over the last few laps. David Wright now takes up the challenge of Lemarie. Through paddock, down that dip, a very steep hill it is. It doesn't look so much on this camera. There's Macaulay moving up past Delsart. So Delsart getting pushed back more and more. Macaulay moves up. Also looking up the inside was Antolainen. So a lot of overtaking, but up front, Oliver Gavin, who made that move earlier on, has moved forward very fast. He's now caught up with Vincent Rademacher. So Oliver Gavin on the move. He's closed the gap to the Dutch champion. He'll want to get by as soon as possible and try and catch the battle for 2nd and 3rd between Hall and Vejlanen. slipstreaming along the straight, up to Paddock Hill Bend. Gavin looks up wide, cuts inside, a beautifully executed manoeuvre. It looks so easy when it works, but really, he's set the Dutch champion up. There's Veilanen tries once more for that narrowing gap up the inside, but Chris Hall, the 31-year-old Brands champion, showing the young Finn a thing or two about Brands Hatch, as Gavin now straight away puts some daylight between himself and the Dutch champion. Veilanen looks again, he's trying to rattle Hall, but Hall knows his way around this circuit. He's champion of Brands Hatch, and he's going to show this young Finnish boy how good he is. Oh, and another one off. That's 34, Jonathan Kane, and an unknown assailant. And not very happy indeed. Well, there's going to be the marshal having to get in between those two marshals, not only for safety, but also to look after the boy. Here we see what happened. And that's Kane. Oh, and well, I can understand it was in fact 130 Jason Yeomans, and really one can understand why Jason was none too pleased. Veilanen, though, now attacking Hall again, looking for the outside line on top straight. He's slipstreamed up, he's looking for the high, wide line. He'll then try and cut inside on the exit of Paddock Hill Bend, get on the inside for Druids, but Hall straight away moves to the right to defend that position. So all the time, Goossens is getting away in front, and the battle behind these two is actually beginning to close in, with Gavin chasing after these two for all he's worth. So Hall being very defensive now. Second place in the semi-final, is going to be on the second row of the grid for the final. He'd be happy with that, but Veilanen wants more. Veilanen also wants that second row of the grid for the final. In the background, the battle for 4th, 5th and 6th rages on. We see, in fact, Gavin's lost that place, so Rademacher back in 4th, but the battle is for second we're watching. And that's against Chris Hall, the veteran Brands Hatch man, against young Tommy Veilanen, who's having a tremendous run. Starting their 11th lap out of 15, Veilanen needs to do something in these closing laps to move up that position. There he's pulling tighter. No, he just can't get the nose up the inside. In the background it's Rademacher, Hurtgen, Gavin. In fact, the German girl getting ahead of Gavin. Round Druids, Hall still holding Veilanen, so close. These cars haven't been further apart than this for the entire 11 laps of this semi-final so far. And Hall having to look in both mirrors at the same time to make sure the young Finnish boy, he obviously won't try anything too stupid, he wants to be in the final. But here, this battle for 4th is catching this. Hurtgen looks to the inside of Rademacher. Gavin obviously has moved back, he must have made a mistake. He was up to 4th, he's now back to 6th place and will be cursing whatever mistake he made. The battle along the top straight, slipstreaming. Hurtgen has already shown she can overtake. She's done very well. She was only 10th on the grid in her heat, so she's really been moving up all weekend. A tremendous drive from the young German girl, but Gavin looks up the inside. It's not to be. She's looking in her mirrors. Gavin trying all the way around the outside. Hurtgen holding the inside. Has Gavin done it? He's right round the outside, down the hill to Graham Hill Bend, and Gavin, it paid off. It's a difficult manoeuvre, it can be done, and Oliver Gavin really inexperienced in Formula Ford terms, but showing a tremendous turn of speed at this festival. Goossens now well out on his own in the lead, but this battle for second place still as close. I think Veilanen's nose cone is glued to Hall's gearbox. He's trying to get the slipstream as much as possible, stay tucked in behind, then snap out of line on the approach to Paddock Hill Bend. You can't get closer than that. It's tremendous Formula Ford racing. Of course, Veilanen, a new Finnish name, both JJ Leto and Mika Hakkinen sprung to prominence in this Formula Ford festival. And here we see Oliver Gavin has moved back into 4th place. So Gavin giving himself a lot of work at this festival. He moves to the front, he moves back, and now he's back forwards into 4th place. As I was saying though, Tommy Veilanen, a new Finnish name. Both JJ Leto and Mika Hakkinen made their name at this Formula Ford festival, and if Veilanen thought he was going to be in Grand Prix racing in about 4 or 5 years' time, he'd be delighted. But right now, he'd be delighted if he could get by Chris Hall and get on the second row of the grid for the final. He's closer than ever. Hall moves this way and the other. Veilanen now has slightly got that momentum onto the straight. Can he get up alongside? Up to Paddock Hill Bend. Hall holds that. It's the last lap. Veilanen now, he's only got a few corners. Druids Hill Bend coming up. He's going to look to the inside. No, he's not. He's going up the outside. He's going to try the long outside line. A tremendous effort. He's through. He's round. No, he slides wide. He just took too much speed into the corner. He had to scrub the speed off, going too quickly. Chris Hall holds on to that second place he's fought so valiantly to keep. Behind Gavin is closing in fourth. This battle for second has allowed Gavin to close up. He won't catch them before the end. Hall takes the inside line. Goosens is well on his way to winning the semi-final. Hall is going to hold on to second place. Vayalane in a tremendous third place. Behind him, the battle rages, and Gavin's going to be fourth. Vayalane in a final lunge across the line, but it's not to be.
Another victory then for Mark Goosens, who's looked so composed through the heats, the quarterfinals and the semi-final. Chris Hall beating Tommy Vayalainen in that fine race for second. Those top six all contenders for the title, although Warren Hughes would have pole position ahead of Goosens in the final. But Goosens was looking good, and the Belgian flag was flying bravely at Brands Hatch.